Captain Jeho Park sat at his desk in the Earth Defense Force headquarters, looking at the morning reports. It was a normal Tuesday morning, until it wasn't. The emergency alert system started flashing red. Jeho's screen showed a large object at the edge of the solar system. It wasn't a meteor or a comet. It was moving too carefully for that. "Captain, we're getting a signal," said Officer Lee at the communication station. It's not like anything we've seen before." Jeho stood up straight. After 15 years in the Earth Defense Force, he had trained for this moment. "First contact. Put it on the main screen," he ordered. The large screen at the front of the command center came to life. What they saw made everyone stop and stare. The alien looking back at them had blue-gray skin and large, dark eyes. It wore what looked like a uniform with strange symbols. "Greetings, Earth Facility." The alien spoke in perfect English. "I am Ambassador Rack of the Stellar Federation. We come with urgent concerns about your safety." Jeho kept his voice steady. "This is Captain Jeho Park of the Earth Defense Force. We are listening, Ambassador." The alien's expression changed to something that looked like worry. "Captain Park, our long-range scans show that your civilization has developed advanced technology. Yet you continue to live in this system. We must ask, do you not know about your star?" Jeho looked confused. "Our sun? What about it?" Ambassador Rack moved closer to his camera. "Your star is what we call a yellow dwarf. In our experience, these stars are extremely dangerous. They release powerful solar flares, radiation bursts, and electromagnetic pulses. By all our safety standards, this entire system should be marked as uninhabitable." The command center stayed quiet. Jeho looked at the sun through the window. The same sun that had given life to Earth, the sun that humans had lived under for thousands of years. "Ambassador," Jeho said carefully, "our sun has been here for billions of years. We have built our civilization around it. Yes, it has dangerous moments, but we have learned to live with them, to protect ourselves from them." The alien's eyes widened. "Impossible. Our calculations show that the radiation levels alone should make surface life extremely difficult. Yet you have built cities. You have space stations. You have a thriving civilization right next to what we would call an exploding star." Jeho couldn't help but smile a little. "Perhaps we could share information. Ambassador, we have centuries of data about living with our sun, and I'm sure we could learn from your experience with other star systems." The alien was quiet for a moment. Then it made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Captain Park, the Federation Council will be very interested in this. We have avoided yellow dwarf systems for millennia, believing them too unstable for intelligent life. Yet here you are, not just surviving but thriving. We would be happy to host a delegation," Jeho offered. "You can see for yourself how we've adapted to our star." "Adapted?" Rack seemed amazed by the word. "Yes, Captain. I believe this meeting will change how the Federation thinks about habitable worlds and about the resilience of life itself." As the transmission ended, Jeho looked at his crew. Everyone was smiling. Humans had just made first contact with an alien civilization, and the first thing they learned was that they were tougher than anyone expected. Officer Lee spoke up from her station. "Should I alert the government, Captain?" "Yes," Jeho said, still looking at the screen. "Tell them we're about to have some very interested visitors, and they're going to be surprised by how well we handle our neighborhood star." Dr. Hae-Nul Kim walked into the United Nations Conference Center, holding her tablet close. The building was filled with scientists from Earth and visitors from the Stellar Federation. She had spent her whole life studying the sun, but today she would have to explain it to beings who came from distant stars. Chief Researcher Vex stood at the front of the room, showing pictures of different stars on the large screen. His blue-gray skin seemed to shimmer under the conference room lights. "As you can see," he said, pointing to an image of the sun, "your star shows dangerous levels of activity. These solar flares and radiation bursts should make life very difficult." Haynul raised her hand. May I show something? Vex nodded, and Haynul connected her tablet to the display. She showed a timeline of Earth's history with the sun. Yes, our star is active, she said. But we have turned this challenge into an opportunity. She switched to a new image showing Earth's magnetic field and the artificial shields humans had built. Our planet naturally protects us from much of the sun's dangerous energy. We studied this protection and learned to make it stronger. The alien scientists whispered among themselves. One of them spoke up. But the energy requirements for such shields must be enormous. Haynul smiled. That's the interesting part. We use the sun's own power to run our shields. She showed them pictures of vast solar farms and orbital energy collectors. The same star you see as a danger gives us nearly unlimited energy. Vex moved closer to the screen, his large eyes studying the diagrams. Fascinating. You've turned the very thing that threatens you into your power source. We've done more than that, Haynul said. She switched to a video of solar sailors, ships that caught the sun's solar winds to travel through space. We use our star's activity to push our ships. The same flares you fear help us explore our solar system. An alien scientist in the back stood up. This goes against everything we believed about yellow dwarf stars. We have avoided them for thousands of years, thinking them too unstable for civilization. Haynul nodded. Perhaps that's why our perspectives are so different. Humans never had the choice to avoid our star. We had to learn to live with it, to understand it. In doing so, we discovered its gifts as well as its dangers. She showed them more pictures, solar observatories floating in space, weather stations predicting solar storms, and cities protected by invisible shields that turned dangerous radiation into useful power. Our sun taught us something important, Haynul continued. Sometimes the greatest challenges lead to the greatest advances. Every solar flare made us develop better protection. Every radiation burst pushed us to understand more. We didn't just survive near our active star. We learned to thrive because of it. Vex turned to face the room full of scientists. I believe we have much to learn from Earth. Our fear of unstable stars may have caused us to miss great opportunities. Perhaps it is time for the Federation to reconsider what we think of as dangerous space. After the presentation, Haynul found herself surrounded by alien scientists. They had countless questions about living near an active star. As she answered them, she realized something important. Humans hadn't just learned to survive with their sun. They had become masters at turning problems into possibilities. Dr. Kim, Vex said as the meeting ended, would you be willing to help us study other yellow dwarf systems? There might be more civilizations out there, living next to stars we thought were too dangerous. Haynul smiled. Of course. After all, that's what science is about. Discovering that our limits aren't always where we think they are. The National Museum of Korea stood quiet in the early morning light. Bin Lee arranged the ancient artifacts on the display table with careful hands. Today, she would show the Federation's cultural expert how humans had viewed their sun throughout history. Anthropologist Mira walked into the museum hall, her silver robes catching the sunlight from the windows. Unlike other Federation members, she had chosen to take a human name to make communication easier. Her large eyes looked with wonder at the golden artifacts on the table. These are sun symbols from our past, Bin explained, pointing to a golden crown from an ancient kingdom. Our ancestors saw the sun as a god, as life itself. They built their entire culture around it. Mira moved closer to examine the crown. You worshipped something that could destroy you. This is very different from Federation cultures. We always taught our children to fear unstable stars. Bin picked up an old painting showing farmers working in rice fields under the sun. We never just feared the sun. We understood its power, yes, but we also knew we needed it. These farmers knew when to plant their crops by watching the sun's movement through the sky. She led Mira to another display showing solar calendars from different periods. Every major civilization on Earth created ways to track the sun. It helped us know when seasons would change, when to plant crops, when to hold festivals. Festivals? Mira asked, surprised. You celebrated your dangerous star. Debin smiled and showed Mira photographs of modern solar festivals. We still do. Look at these celebrations from around the world. Summer festivals, sun dances, New Year ceremonies, all connected to our relationship with the sun. Mira studied the happy faces in the photographs. In all my years studying different species, I have never seen this. Most civilizations either fear dangerous things or try to control them. But humans, you made your dangerous star part of your identity. It's more than that, Daybin said, leading Mira to a new exhibit about modern solar energy. Look how our old sun worship changed into new forms. Now we build solar panels like our ancestors built sun temples. We still depend on the sun, just in different ways. She showed Mira more artifacts. Ancient mirrors used to start ceremonial fires, modern solar cookers used in villages, artwork showing the sun in both old and new styles. Our relationship with the sun grew with us. As we learned more about it, our respect for it changed, but never went away. Mira touched one of the solar calculators gently. You adapted your culture along with your technology. The Federation always saw adaptation as purely scientific. We never considered the cultural side. Science and culture grow together, Daybin explained. Our scientists studied the sun because our culture taught us it was important. And our culture changed as we learned more about it. A ray of sunlight came through the window, making the golden artifacts shine bright. Mira watched the light play across the ancient symbols. I think I understand now. You didn't just survive near your star. You built your entire way of life around it. Your art, your festivals, your technology. They're all connected to the sun. Dabin nodded. That's why we never thought about leaving, even when we learned how dangerous the sun could be. It's not just our star, it's part of who we are. As they finished the tour, Mira made notes on her tablet. The Federation needs to understand this, she said. We've been so focused on the dangers of unstable stars that we never considered how a civilization might embrace living with one. Your culture hasn't just survived. It has been shaped by your star in beautiful ways. The warning lights in Earth Defense Force headquarters flashed red. Captain Jaiho Park stared at the emergency readings on his screen. The sun had just released the largest solar flare ever recorded in human history. Time to impact. 6 hours, Officer Lee announced. Her voice stayed calm, just as she had been trained. The flare is 3 times larger than anything in our records. Ambassador Rex's face appeared on the main screen. Captain Park, you must evacuate your key personnel immediately. Our ships can transport 5,000 of your leaders and scientists to safety. This solar event will overwhelm your defenses. Jaiho looked around the command center. His team waited for his decision. Through the window, he could see the sun shining as it had for billions of years. The same sun that had given Earth life was now testing them again. Ambassador, thank you for your offer, Jaiho said carefully. But we will stay, all of us. Rack's large eyes widened. Captain, you don't understand. Our calculations show this flare will break through your shields. You cannot survive this. Respectfully, Ambassador, we can and we will. Jaiho pressed a button, showing the global defense network activating across Earth. Humanity has lived under this sun for thousands of years. We have planned for days like this. On screens around the command center, cities across Earth activated their emergency protocols. Giant shield generators powered up. Underground shelters opened their doors, ready if needed. But most people continued their daily lives, trusting in the defenses humanity had built. This is madness, Rack said. Even if some of your shields hold, the radiation levels will be extreme. Please, let us help you. Jaiho smiled slightly. Ambassador, did you know that life on Earth first developed during a time when our sun was even more active than today? Life here didn't just survive. It evolved to thrive under these conditions. We learned from that example. The Federation ships in orbit watched as Earth's defensive systems came online. Layer after layer of protection surrounded the planet. Magnetic shields, radiation absorbers, and energy dispersal networks all worked together. 3 hours to impact. Officer Lee updated. All systems are responding normally. Captain, Rack tried one last time. At least let us evacuate the children. Our children will be safe, Jai-Ho assured him. They need to see that humanity doesn't run from challenges. We face them, we learn from them, and we grow stronger. The hours passed slowly. Federation scientists watched in amazement as Earth's defense network adapted to the approaching flare. The shields adjusted their strength and position, working together like a living thing. 1 hour to impact, Officer Lee announced. All cities report ready. Global shield network at full power. Jai-Ho stood at his command station, watching the approaching solar storm. This is why we never left, he said to Rack. Each challenge from our sun taught us something new, made us stronger, more adaptable. Today, we'll learn even more. The Federation ships backed away to a safe distance, their sensors recording everything. They were about to witness either humanity's greatest triumph or their worst miscalculation. As the massive solar flare approached Earth, Jai-Ho thought about all the generations that had lived under this same sun. They had turned its power from a threat into a gift. Now it was his generation's turn to prove that humanity belonged here, beside their beautiful, dangerous star. Su-Min Kang stood at the main control panel of the Global Shield Network headquarters. Her fingers moved quickly over the displays as she made final adjustments to Earth's defenses. The massive solar flare was only 30 minutes away, but her hands remained steady. The Federation ships are broadcasting again, her assistant said. They want to know if we need help with evacuation. Su-Min didn't look up from her work. Send them our standard response. Earth stands firm. The room around her buzzed with activity as engineers monitored the worldwide network of shield generators. On the main screen, a map showed thousands of points of light where each shield generator connected to the others. It looked like a web of stars covering the Earth. Chief Engineer Kang, a voice called. She turned to see Chief Researcher Vex from the Federation walking into the control room. I had to see this for myself. Your captain allowed me to observe. Su-Min nodded to him, but kept working. Watch carefully then. You're about to see something your people thought impossible. She pulled up a new display showing the approaching solar flare. It was enormous, a wall of energy rushing toward Earth at millions of kilometers per hour, but Su-Min smiled as she looked at it. You seem happy about this danger, Vex said, confused. Our scientists say this flare could destroy your civilization. That's because you don't understand our relationship with the sun, Su-Min explained. She pressed a button, and the room's walls became transparent, showing a view of the shield network from space. Every time the sun challenges us, we learn something new. She pointed to different parts of the shield network. See these patterns. We copied them from Earth's magnetic field. These energy flows, we learned them from studying solar winds. Even this control room copies patterns we found in solar plasma. Vex moved closer to the displays, his eyes wide. You studied the very forces that threatened you and turned them into protection. Exactly. Su-Min brought up another screen showing the history of Earth's shield technology. Each major solar event taught us something. We didn't just build walls to hide behind. We learned to work with our sun's energy. The warning systems showed 15 minutes until impact. Su-Min calmly started the final shield activation sequence. Around the world, thousands of generators hummed to life, their patterns matching the natural flows of solar energy. Remarkable, Vex whispered. Your shields don't just block the solar energy. They redirect it, use it, learn from it. That's the key, Su-Min said as she made final adjustments. We stopped seeing our sun as an enemy to fight. Instead, it became our teacher. Every flare, every storm showed us new ways to work with its power. The room fell quiet as the final countdown began. Through the transparent walls, they could see the first signs of the approaching flare. The sky began to shimmer with unusual colors. 10 minutes to impact, the computer announced. All shield systems operating at peak efficiency. Su-min looked at her team, then at Vex. Watch closely, friend. You're about to see how humans dance with their sun. The shield network glowed brighter, its patterns shifting and flowing like waves in an ocean of light. Humanity's greatest achievement was about to face its greatest test, and Su-min knew they were ready. After all, they had learned from the best teacher in the solar system, their own magnificent, dangerous star. The solar flare hit Earth's outer shields at exactly 2:15 p.m. Korean Standard Time. The sky turned bright red, then purple, then colors that had no names. But in the streets of Seoul, people simply opened their umbrellas and continued walking. From the Federation observation ship, Ambassador Rack watched in amazement. "They're not even going to their shelters," he said to Captain Ji-ho through the video link. "Your people are just going about their normal day." Ji-ho nodded, looking at his own screens showing cities around the world. "This is what we've prepared for. Our shields aren't just walls. They're part of our daily life." In the Global Shield Network control room, Su-min's fingers danced across her control panel. The shield network glowed as it caught the solar energy, redirecting it through carefully designed patterns. Warning lights flashed, but they were yellow, not red. "Shield network at 80% capacity and holding," she announced. "Energy conversion systems working normally." Chief Researcher Vex stood behind her, recording everything with his instruments. "Impossible," he whispered. "You're not just blocking the flare. You're using it." Su-min smiled as she adjusted some controls. "Watch the power readings for the Seoul metropolitan area," she said. On a side screen, power generation numbers began to climb. As the solar flare's energy hit the shields, the city's power reserves filled up. What the Federation saw as a disaster, Earth's engineers had turned into a power source. "Our ancestors used to pray when solar storms came," Su-min explained as she worked. "Now we check our power meters instead. Today's flare will provide free electricity to Seoul for the next 3 months." In space, the Federation ship's sensors recorded everything. They watched as Earth's shield network caught the solar energy, channeled it, transformed it. The planet glowed like a jewel in space, wrapped in layers of light that moved like living things. "Second wave approaching," Officer Lee announced from her station. "This one's even stronger." Ji-ho touched his command screen, sending new orders to the shield network. "Su-min, activate the secondary collectors. No sense in wasting good energy." The Federation observers watched as Earth's defenses shifted again, creating new patterns to catch the second wave. The planet's shields now looked like a giant spider web made of light, each strand pulsing with captured solar power. In the streets below, children pointed at the beautiful colors in the sky. Parents took pictures with their phones. Street vendors continued selling food. Trains ran on schedule. It was for humanity, just another day living next to their active star. "I don't understand," Ambassador Rack said, his voice filled with wonder. "Our scientists said this level of solar activity would destroy civilization. But your people, they're treating it like a light show." "That's because we learned something important long ago," Ji-ho explained. "The universe doesn't care if we think something is too dangerous. So instead of running away, we learn to adapt, to build, to turn challenges into opportunities." As the second wave hit, Earth's shields glowed brighter. Power stations around the world reported record energy collection levels. And in the Global Shield Network control room, Su-min and her team continued their work, monitoring systems and making small adjustments, as casual as gardeners tending their plants. "I think," Vex said quietly, "the Federation has much to learn from Earth." 1 week after the massive solar flare, Ambassador Rack sat in a meeting room at the Earth Defense Force headquarters. The walls showed live images of the sun, its surface moving and churning with endless energy. Around the table sat representatives from Earth, Captain Jai-ho, Dr. Hae-Nul, Chief Engineer Su-min, and a new face, Min-ho Choi, one of Earth's most experienced solar sailors. "Tell me, Captain Min-ho," Rak said, "why did you choose to become a solar sailor? To fly ships so close to this dangerous star?" Min-ho smiled, his weathered face showing years of experience in space. "I didn't see danger. I saw opportunity. Solar winds can push our ships faster than any engine. The same forces you fear give us free transportation across our solar system." Hae-Nul pulled up images showing solar sailing ships riding waves of solar radiation. "Our solar sailors study the sun's patterns like ancient sailors once studied ocean winds. They've learned to read the signs, to predict the currents of space. But the radiation," Rak started to say, "made us develop better protection." Su-min finished for him. "Each challenge from our sun pushed us to create new solutions. Solar sailing gave us technologies we now use in our shield network." Jai-ho touched a control, and the wall screen showed Earth's history with the sun. "Look at our timeline," he said. "Every major solar event led to new discoveries, new technologies, new ways of thinking." Rak studied the images carefully. The Federation always saw yellow dwarf stars as problems to avoid. But humans, you saw them as teachers. "Exactly," Min-ho said. He stood up and walked to the window, looking at the sun. "When I'm out there, riding the solar winds, I don't feel fear. I feel connection. Our sun isn't just a star we happen to live near. It's part of us, part of who we are as a species." Hae-Nul added her own thoughts. "We learned long ago that we couldn't control our sun. So instead, we learned to dance with it, to move with its rhythms, to turn its power into something useful." Rak looked at his notes from the past week. "Your children learned about solar safety as naturally as they learn to walk. Your engineers treat solar flares as power sources, not disasters. Your sailors ride radiation waves like," he searched for the right word, "like surfers on ocean waves." "Now you understand," Jai-ho said quietly. "We didn't just survive here. We didn't just adapt. We learned to thrive because of our sun, not despite it." Su-min pulled up more technical data. Each generation added something new. Better predictive systems, more efficient energy collectors, stronger shields. But the most important thing we built wasn't technology. "What was it?" Rak asked. "Perspective," Min-ho answered, still looking at the sun. "We learned to see beauty in power, to find opportunity in challenge, to trust that we could learn and grow from anything the universe threw at us." Rak stood and joined Min-ho at the window. For the first time, he tried to see the sun as humans did, not as a threat, but as a partner in their journey as a species. "The Federation Council will want to learn from you," he said finally. "Not just your technology, but your way of thinking, your ability to turn danger into opportunity, to find strength in what we thought was only threat." The sun flared briefly, sending a burst of light through the window. But no one in the room flinched. They simply watched, comfortable in their place beside their ancient, powerful, beautiful star. 3 months after the great solar flare, Captain Jai-ho Park stood before the Stellar Federation Council. The grand chamber stretched out before him, filled with representatives from 1,000 worlds. They had gathered to hear Earth's story. "Distinguished council members," Jai-ho began, "1 year ago, you discovered a civilization living next to what you called an unstable star. You thought we needed rescue. Instead, we showed you something new. That challenge breeds innovation, and what seems dangerous to one species might become strength for another." The council chamber remained silent as Jai-ho showed them images from Earth, cities protected by shields that turned solar radiation into power, ships sailing on waves of solar wind, children playing under skies that danced with aurora lights. "Because of what you learned from Earth," Jai-ho continued, "your scientists have found 3 other civilizations living near yellow dwarf stars, civilizations you had overlooked because you thought their homes were too dangerous." On a large screen behind him, Images appeared of new worlds. Each one had found their own ways to live with their active stars. Each had developed unique technologies and cultures shaped by their challenging environments. In the front row, Ambassador Rack nodded with approval. Next to him sat Dr. Hae-Nul Kim, now leading the joint research project between Earth and the Federation. They were studying how different species adapted to various stellar conditions. "We've learned that life is more resilient than we imagined," Hae-Nul said, standing to address the council. "Each of these newly discovered civilizations has something to teach us. Each found different answers to the same challenges." The council members watched as she showed data from their research. Some civilizations had built underground cities. Others had developed biological adaptations to radiation. Each one had turned their star's power to their advantage in unique ways. "The Federation has always been proud of our scientific knowledge," the council leader said. "But Earth and these other worlds have taught us an important lesson. Sometimes our assumptions about what is possible can blind us to new discoveries." Jaiho smiled as he delivered his final message. "We propose a new mission for the Federation. Instead of avoiding yellow dwarf systems, let us explore them. Instead of fearing unstable stars, let us learn from those who have mastered living with them." The council chambers erupted in approval. Representatives from across the galaxy stood to support the proposal. The Federation would create a new division dedicated to studying and connecting with civilizations in previously overlooked star systems. Later that day, Jaiho stood with Hae-Nul and Rack in the council building's observation dome. Their sun was visible as a distant point of light among the stars. "What you taught us goes beyond science," Rack said thoughtfully. "You showed us that the greatest discoveries often lie in the places we were afraid to look. And there's still so much to learn," Hae-Nul added. "Each new civilization we find teaches us something new about adaptation, survival, and growth." Jaiho looked at the distant light of Earth's sun. "That's the real lesson we learned from living next to our active star," he said. "The universe has no limits except the ones we create in our minds. When we move past our fears, we find new possibilities waiting for us." As they watched, a new ship class launched from the Federation shipyards, the first of their solar sailors. Built with technology learned from Earth, it unfurled its radiation-catching sails and began its journey toward unexplored yellow dwarf systems, carrying the promise of new discoveries and connections yet to come.